The message arrived at Earth's diplomatic office at exactly midnight UTC. The holographic display pulsed with an urgent red glow, something that hadn't happened since humanity's first contact 50 years ago. Jack Thompson, the night shift operator, nearly spilled his coffee when he saw the Galactic Council's official seal rotating above his desk. "This can't be good," he muttered, quickly pressing the emergency notification button. Within minutes, the once quiet office transformed into a hub of frantic activity. The message was simple but troubling. Earth's presence is required before the Grand Council in 7 standard days. Failure to appear will result in immediate sanctions. This is not a routine matter. Director Robert Miller stood in the central command room, his gray hair disheveled from being woken up at such an hour. Around him, screens displayed data from Earth's various space outposts and diplomatic missions. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, which made the summons even more concerning. "Get me Ambassador Reed," Miller ordered, his voice carrying the weight of decades of diplomatic experience. "And someone find out what's happening with our research stations. The Council never makes midnight calls for pleasant conversations." James Reed was enjoying a quiet evening at his Montana cabin when the call came. As Earth's most experienced diplomat, he had handled countless alien negotiations, but something about this summons made his instincts tingle. The Council usually followed strict protocols. Emergency meetings were rare and never without prior warning. "I'll be there in an hour," Reed told Miller, already packing his diplomatic kit. He paused to look at the night sky through his cabin window. Somewhere up there, the massive Council station orbited a distant star, hosting representatives from over 300 species. Now something had gone wrong, and humanity needed answers. At the diplomatic office, Reed studied the message again. The wording was unusual, almost hostile. In his 15 years of service, he had never seen the Council use such direct language. The usual flowery diplomatic phrases were missing, replaced by what felt like barely contained anger. "Show me all our recent technological submissions to the Council," he asked the office aide. Data streamed across his screen. Clean energy projects, medical research, improved space drives, nothing that violated galactic laws. Yet something had upset the usually calm Council enough to demand Earth's immediate presence. Tom Wilson, Reed's trusted aide, arrived with a stack of data pads. "Sir, I've been analyzing communication patterns with Council species over the last month. There's been a 40% decrease in regular diplomatic exchanges. Something's been brewing, and we missed it." Reed nodded, his mind already forming patterns. "Or they wanted us to miss it, Tom. Have you noticed how our friendly contacts have gone silent one by one? Almost like they're being pressured." The next 6 hours were a blur of preparation. Reed selected his team carefully. Besides Wilson, he chose only 3 others, all veterans of interstellar diplomacy. A smaller team meant more flexibility, and Reed had a feeling they would need it. As they boarded the diplomatic vessel, Hope's Messenger, Reed felt the familiar mix of excitement and concern that came with difficult missions. The ship's AI announced their departure clearance, and Reed took one last look at Earth through the viewing port. "Sir," Wilson said, interrupting his thoughts, "I've been comparing this summons to historical records. The last time the Council used similar language was right before they sanctioned the Aldebaran Alliance. They were accused of illegal weapons development." Reed's eyes narrowed. "How interesting. And what happened to their economy after the sanctions?" "Collapsed within a year. They're still recovering, 50 years later." "Then we better make sure that doesn't happen to Earth," Reed said, settling into his chair as the ship prepared for its faster-than-light jump. "Tom, get me everything you can find about the Aldebaran case. Something tells me history is trying to repeat itself, but this time, we'll be ready." The ship disappeared into hyperspace, carrying Earth's hopes with it. In 7 days, they would face the Council's accusations. In 7 days, they would either save Earth's future or watch it crumble. And James Reed had no intention of letting it crumble. The Hope's Messenger dropped out of hyperspace, and the massive Council station filled their view. The structure was a marvel of engineering. a spinning ring 20 kilometers wide, gleaming with the light of 1,000 windows. 6 massive docking arms extended from its center, each capable of hosting the largest ships in the galaxy. "Look at that welcome committee," Tom Wilson said, pointing to the cluster of security vessels approaching their ship. "I count 8 patrol ships. That's double the usual escort." James Reed stood at the bridge viewport, his expression neutral despite his growing concern. The patrol ships surrounded them in a tight formation, their weapon ports clearly visible. This wasn't an escort, it was a cage. "Records show they haven't deployed this level of security since the trade wars," the ship's AI reported. "And sir, they're directing us to the quarantine dock." Reed exchanged glances with Wilson. The quarantine dock was usually reserved for potentially hostile species or diplomatic parties under investigation. Its location on the station's outer ring would keep them far from the main council chambers and other diplomatic missions. "Let them play their game," Reed said quietly. "Document everything. Every unusual procedure, every deviation from standard protocol. We might need it later." The docking process was tense. Instead of the usual diplomatic greeting party, they were met by 4 council security officers, tall, blue-skinned beings in formal armor. Their leader stepped forward, mandibles clicking in what Reed recognized as disapproval. "Earth delegation, you will be escorted to your assigned quarters. Your movement on the station will be restricted until the hearing. This is for your own protection." Reed smiled politely. "Of course, we understand completely. Though I must note that such measures seem excessive for a simple hearing, unless there's something we should know." The security leader's inner eyelids flickered, a sign of discomfort that Reed had learned to recognize over his years of diplomatic service. "The council will explain everything at the appropriate time." As they walked through the station's outer corridors, Reed observed the other diplomatic missions they passed. Many quickly turned away, avoiding eye contact. But a few, particularly the younger species representatives, showed clear signs of sympathy. Their assigned quarters were spacious but isolated. As soon as the security team left, Wilson activated their counter-surveillance equipment. "We're being monitored through at least 12 different channels," he reported. "Audio, thermal, and some exotic stuff I've never seen before." Reed nodded, unsurprised. "Good. Let them watch." "Tom, remember the trade delegation from the Outer Rim last year? The ones who warned us about council politics." Wilson's eyes widened with understanding. "The ones who said the council was losing control of its economic influence. You think this is connected? Look around us. The excessive security, the isolation, the show of force. They're scared of something. And I don't think it's our supposed weapons development." A soft chime interrupted their conversation. The room's communication panel displayed a message. "Council session scheduled for tomorrow, 800 station time. Attendance is mandatory." Reed sat down at the room's desk, activating his secure data pad. "Time to prepare our defense. Tom, start analyzing the station's public data feeds. Look for patterns in recent council decisions, particularly regarding emerging species. What about the official charges? We still don't know what we're accused of." "That's exactly what worries me," Reed replied, his fingers moving across the data pad. "They're breaking centuries of diplomatic protocol. Either they have overwhelming evidence against us, or they're desperate, and desperate powers make mistakes." Reed looked up at the hidden surveillance devices, knowing their watchers would be analyzing every word. "We just need to figure out which mistake they're about to make." Outside their windows, the endless expanse of space stretched before them, dotted with the ships of 100 species. Somewhere in this massive station, forces were moving against Earth. But James Reed had faced impossible odds before, and he had one advantage his opponents didn't expect. The truth was on his side. Tomorrow, the real game would begin. The council chamber was designed to intimidate. Its circular walls rose 50 meters high, with seats arranged in ascending rings like an ancient amphitheater. Representatives from 300 species filled the chamber, their quiet whispers creating an echo that sounded like waves on a distant shore. James Reed and Tom Wilson stood at the center of the chamber, on a platform that seemed deliberately small compared to the vast space around them. Above them, the council's high judge, an ancient being with crystalline skin, looked down from the highest tier. The emergency session of the Galactic Council is now in session, the high judge announced, their voice resonating through the chamber. We are here to address serious accusations against the species known as humans. Reed stood perfectly still, his posture relaxed but alert. He had spent the night reviewing historical records of similar trials, and something didn't add up. The council rarely moved this quickly unless they were certain of guilt, or desperate to prove it. The main display activated, showing a holographic map of Earth's solar system. Red markers highlighted several research stations orbiting Earth and Mars. "We'd present evidence," a council prosecutor began, their insectoid features glinting under the chamber's lights, "of illegal weapons development beyond humanity's assigned technological tier. Our sensors have detected energy signatures consistent with prohibited military research." The chamber erupted in murmurs. Reed noticed something interesting. The species that seemed most outraged were all major trading powers. The smaller, newer council members appeared more skeptical. "These energy signatures," the prosecutor continued, "match patterns seen in banned weapon systems. Earth has been conducting this research in secret while pretending to focus on civilian technology." Images appeared in the air around them. Complex energy readings, sensor data, and comparison charts. Reed studied them carefully, and suddenly, understanding dawned in his eyes. He almost smiled but kept his expression neutral. "Would the human representative care to respond to these accusations?" the high judge asked. Reed stepped forward, his voice clear and confident. "Honored council, we request access to the raw sensor data that led to these accusations. It's our right under Article 7 of the Council Charter." The prosecutor's mandibles clicked in annoyance. "The data is classified for security reasons. The processed analysis should be sufficient." With respect, Reed replied, "Earth cannot defend itself against interpretations without seeing the original data. Unless the Council wishes to set a precedent of denying basic rights to accused species." Several representatives from younger species straightened in their seats. Reed had just reminded them that today's precedent could be used against them tomorrow. The high judge conferred briefly with other council members. "The raw data will be provided. We will reconvene in 6 hours." As they left the chamber, Wilson whispered, "You saw something in those readings, didn't you?" Reed nodded slightly. "Those weapons signatures they're so worried about. They look remarkably similar to the energy patterns from our new fusion plants, the ones that could make half the Council's energy trade agreements worthless. You think this is about economics, not weapons. It always is, Tom. But they made a mistake. They're so used to seeing weapons in everything, they forgot that the same patterns can have peaceful uses." Reed paused as they entered their temporary quarters. "Get me every technical report on our fusion research, every test, every variation in energy output." Wilson started working immediately. "What are you planning?" "They tried to use our own progress against us," Reed said, his eyes showing the first hint of real anger since their arrival. "Now we're going to show the entire council exactly what that progress means, and why trying to suppress it was their biggest mistake." Outside the council chamber, representatives from various species hurried to contact their governments. Something in the humans' response had shaken them. They had expected fear, denial, or anger. Instead, they had seen confidence. And confident defendants in council trials were either foolish or dangerous. James Reed was not foolish. The 6 hours before the next council session turned into a race against time. Reed and Wilson had converted their quarters into an impromptu command center, with data streaming across multiple screens. The raw sensor data from the council had arrived, and it told an interesting story. "Look at these readings," Wilson said, pointing to a series of energy spikes. "They match perfectly with the activation times of our new fusion plants. The Council's seeing weapons tests. but these are just power-up sequences. Reed nodded, but his attention was on another screen showing trade data. More interesting is what happened to Council energy prices every time we activated a new plant. Each spike corresponds to a 2% drop in energy futures markets. A soft chime interrupted their work. The door slid open to reveal a small, gray-skinned being, a representative from one of the younger council species. Their large eyes darted nervously around the room. "Ambassador Reed," the being whispered, "I am Representative Gray from the Outer Systems Alliance. We have information you need to see." Reed gestured to a chair, noting how the representative carefully checked the corridor before entering. "What kind of information, Representative?" "Records of similar accusations. Against my people, against others. Always when a species develops technology that could disrupt certain markets." Gray placed a data crystal on the table. "We were too weak to fight back. Earth isn't." Wilson quickly scanned the crystal's contents. His eyes widened. "Sir, this is a goldmine. Trade agreements, technological classifications, suppression orders, going back 300 years. Why help us?" Reed asked Gray directly. "Because if Earth falls, we lose hope. Your fusion technology could free dozens of worlds from energy dependence. The Council knows this. That's why they're moving so quickly." After Gray left, Reed and Wilson dove into the new data. A pattern emerged. Every time a species developed technology that threatened major Council members' economic interests, mysterious weapons signatures would be detected. "Tom, cross-reference these cases with Council membership changes," Reed ordered. "I want to know if any species lost their seats after these accusations." The results were damning. 17 species had been demoted or suspended from the Council following similar charges. Their economies had collapsed under sanctions, forcing them to accept unfavorable trade terms. A message flashed on their secure terminal, more representatives wanting to share information. Over the next few hours, a steady stream of data flowed in from species that had suffered similar treatment. "They're not just suppressing technology," Wilson realized, analyzing the combined data. "They're using the weapons classification system to control economic development. Anything that threatens their power gets labeled as military technology." Reed stood at the window, watching ships dock at the station. How many of those 17 species developed clean energy technology? 12. The other 5 had advanced recycling systems that would have disrupted the mining monopolies. Perfect. Reed smiled for the first time since arriving at the station. "Send a message to Earth. I want every technical detail of our fusion plants, every safety test, every civilian application. And Tom, make sure it's all in formats compatible with Council communication systems. Going public. Better. We're going to give it away. Right here in the Council chamber." Reed turned from the window, his eyes showing fierce determination. "They want to call it a weapon. Fine. Let's show them exactly what kind of weapon it is, one that fights poverty, energy shortages, and economic oppression." Wilson looked concerned. "The major powers will be furious." "Yes," Reed agreed, "but the other 280 species in that chamber, they're going to be very, very interested, especially when they learn how long they've been lied to." The next Council session was in 1 hour. Reed gathered his evidence carefully, organizing it for maximum impact. The Council thought they were putting Earth on trial. They were about to learn that the real trial was just beginning. The hour before the next Council session was like the calm before a storm. Reed stood in front of a mirror, adjusting his formal diplomatic uniform, while Wilson made final preparations on their presentation. The quarters had become even busier, with encrypted messages arriving every few minutes from sympathetic species. "Latest update from Earth," Wilson announced, reading from his datapad. "They've authorized us to share full technical specifications of the fusion plants. The President says," and I quote, "show them what humanity stands for." Reed nodded, reviewing the presentation one last time. "How many species have secretly pledged support?" 47 so far. Most are smaller economies, but together they represent almost a third of the council's voting power. Wilson paused, checking another message. Make that 48. The Mining Belt Confederation just joined us. The door chimed, and a council security team entered to escort them to the chamber. Reed noticed they seemed less aggressive than before. Word had clearly spread that something big was about to happen. As they walked through the station's corridors, Reed mentally reviewed their strategy. The evidence was organized in 3 parts: historical cases of technology suppression, proof of energy market manipulation, and the complete technical details of Earth's fusion technology. Remember, Reed told Wilson quietly as they approached the council chamber, timing is everything. Wait for my signal before starting the data broadcast. The chamber was even more crowded than before. Representatives from every member species were present, something that hadn't happened in over 50 years. The air was thick with tension and anticipation. The High Judge's crystalline form caught the light as they spoke. This session will conclude the investigation into Earth's alleged weapons development. Does the human representative wish to present a defense? Reed stepped forward, his voice calm and clear. Honored Council, Earth does not need to present a defense. Instead, we wish to present a gift. Murmurs of confusion spread through the chamber. The prosecutor started to object, but Reed continued speaking, his words carefully chosen. For too long, certain council members have used weapons classifications to maintain economic control. They see weapons in clean energy, in recycling technology, in medical advances. Today, we will show you what they're really afraid of. He nodded to Wilson, who activated their presentation. The chamber's massive displays came to life, showing detailed schematics of Earth's fusion technology. But instead of technical specifications, Reed began showing economic projections. This is what happens when clean energy becomes available to all species, he explained, as graphs showed plummeting energy costs. This is why our technology was labeled as weapons development, because it is a weapon against poverty, against resource wars, against economic oppression. The chamber erupted in chaos. Major trading powers shouted objections, while smaller species leaned forward in their seats, hope visible in their varied expressions. We have evidence, Reed continued, his voice cutting through the noise, of 43 similar cases where beneficial technology was suppressed through false weapons classifications. The data is being transmitted to every member species now. Wilson pressed a final button, and the secure data packets they'd prepared began flowing to every council member's systems. The encryption was designed to prevent the most powerful members from blocking the transmission. The High Judge's crystalline surface flickered with concern. This is highly irregular. Yes, Reed agreed, just like the irregular procedures used to accuse us, just like the irregular suppression of technology that could help billions, just like the irregular economic controls that have kept emerging species dependent on council powers. As the data spread through the chamber, Reed could see the shift in the room. The major powers were losing control of the narrative, and they knew it. But the real shock was yet to come. And now, Reed announced, Earth would like to make an unprecedented proposal to the Council, one that will change everything. The chamber fell silent, waiting for his next words. The game had changed, and everyone knew it. The question was, what would humanity do with their newfound advantage? The council chamber hung in perfect silence as James Reed prepared to make his announcement. Even the most powerful trading species, who moments ago had been shouting objections, now waited anxiously. Earth proposes, Reed said, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber, the immediate formation of an open technology initiative. All member species will have full access to our fusion technology. No restrictions, no trade agreements, no political conditions. The chamber exploded into chaos. Representatives jumped from their seats, some cheering, others protesting. The High Judge's crystalline form pulsed with bright colors, trying to restore order. Reed continued speaking, his calm voice somehow cutting through the noise. But that's just the beginning. We also propose a complete reform of the Council's technology classification system. Wilson activated the next part of their presentation. The main display showed a complicated web of technology classifications, trade agreements, and economic dependencies. Years of data collected by suppressed species, now organized to reveal the truth. Look at these patterns, Reed pointed to the display. Every time a species developed technology that could free them from economic dependence, that technology was mysteriously classified as weapons research. Every time, without fail. The display shifted to show specific cases. The Outer Systems Alliance developed advanced recycling technology, classified as weapons research due to molecular manipulation capabilities. The Mining Belt Confederation created efficient energy storage, classified as weapons research for potential explosive properties. Reed walked slowly around the central platform, making eye contact with representatives from different species. But here's what the major powers didn't expect. We humans have a saying, "The truth will set you free." He nodded to Wilson, who activated the final part of their presentation. These are the complete technical specifications for Earth's fusion technology. Not just the basics, everything. Every safety protocol, every efficiency improvement, every possible civilian application. As we speak, this data is being transmitted to every member species. The major trading powers' representatives were frantically consulting their devices, trying to block the transmission. But Earth's technical team had planned for this, using the Council's own communication networks to ensure the data couldn't be stopped. You accused us of weapons development. Reed's voice grew stronger. You were right, in a way. Knowledge is the most powerful weapon of all. And today we're giving that weapon to everyone. The High Judge finally managed to restore some order. This is unprecedented. The Council's technology sharing protocols are designed to maintain economic control. Reed finished. But today, that changes. Earth calls for an immediate vote on our proposal. According to Council law, when a species is accused of violations, they have the right to present alternative solutions. Representative Gray from the Outer Systems Alliance stood up. The Alliance supports Earth's proposal and calls for an immediate vote. One by one, representatives from smaller species stood, adding their voices to the call. The Chamber's voting system activated automatically as more species joined the demand. The major powers tried to object, but they had made a crucial mistake. In their haste to accuse Earth, they had called an emergency session with all species present. According to Council law, any proposal during such a session could be voted on immediately if enough species demanded it. Reed watched as the voting indicators began to light up across the chamber. Decades of resentment against the major powers' economic control was finally finding an outlet. The vote is beginning, the High Judge announced, their crystalline form reflecting the chaos of colors from the voting displays. Representatives, cast your decisions now. James Reed stood calmly in the center of the storm he had created. Humanity had been accused of developing weapons that could destabilize the galaxy. Instead, they had given the galaxy something far more powerful: hope. 1 month after the historic Council session, James Reed stood at the window of his new office in the Council station. The view had changed significantly. Where there once were only military and trading vessels, now dozens of research ships from various species filled the space around the station. Final count from the vote, Tom Wilson said, entering the office with a data pad. 212 species in favor, 41 against, 47 abstaining. The Open Technology Initiative is officially the most widely supported proposal in Council history. Reed smiled, watching a ship from the Mining Belt Confederation dock at the newly constructed Research Exchange Terminal. How are the first fusion plant installations going? Better than expected. The Outer Systems Alliance already has 3 plants operational. Their energy costs have dropped by 60%. Wilson checked another report. And the Council Reform Committee wants to meet with you again. They're ready to implement the new technology classification system. The door chimed, and Representative Gray entered, looking very different from their first secret meeting. They now walked with confidence, their large eyes bright with optimism. Ambassador Reed, the first shipment of recycling technology from my people has arrived. Combined with Earth's fusion designs, we estimate it will reduce industrial waste by 80% in participating systems. Excellent. Reed nodded. And how are the former council powers handling the changes? They're adapting, surprisingly well in some cases, Gray replied. Several have realized that participating in open technology exchange is more profitable than controlling restricted technology. They're starting to share some of their own developments. Wilson brought up another report on the main display. Speaking of sharing, Earth's inbox is full of technological offerings from other species, medical advances, agricultural improvements, environmental restoration techniques. Everyone wants to be part of the exchange now. Reed walked to his desk, picking up a small crystal, a gift from the High Judge after the vote. It pulsed with soft light, symbolizing the Council's new era of transparency. Any regrets about giving away our fusion technology? Wilson asked, though he already knew the answer. Look at the station. Reed gestured to the window. A month ago, this was a place of political power plays and economic oppression. Now it's becoming what it should have been all along, a center for cooperation and progress. A notification appeared on the main display. Another group of species was requesting to join the Open Technology Initiative. Among them were 3 of the major powers that had originally opposed Earth's proposal. Humanity's reputation has changed completely, Gray observed. Instead of being seen as a threat to galactic stability, you're now viewed as its guardians. Several species are suggesting Earth should have a permanent seat on the Reform Committee. Reed shook his head, smiling. No permanent seats. That's the old way of thinking. Rotation and equal representation. That's how we build trust. The station's public announcement system activated, broadcasting in multiple languages. The first Galactic Technology Exchange Conference will begin in 1 hour. All member species are welcome to attend. We should head to the conference, Wilson said, gathering their materials. You're giving the opening speech. Reed took one last look out the window. A year ago, humanity had been seen as a minor species, barely worth the Council's notice. Now their actions had sparked a revolution, not through weapons or threats, but through sharing and cooperation. As they walked to the conference hall, representatives from dozens of species nodded respectfully to Reed. The human who had turned an accusation of weapons development into a gateway for galactic cooperation. You know, Wilson said quietly, when we first arrived here, I thought we were fighting for Earth's survival. I never expected we'd end up fighting for everyone's freedom. Reed smiled as they entered the packed conference hall. That's the thing about humanity, Tom. We don't just survive, we help others thrive. And that's a weapon no one can defend against. The hall erupted in applause as Reed took the stage. Above him, the conference banner displayed its message in 100 languages. Progress through partnership. The new galactic age. The accusation had backfired spectacularly, and the galaxy would never be the same.